This is the inside of Foster's home for imaginary friends. Yeah, the house. The one with all the rooms. Roughly 9 seconds of an empty room in a kid's cartoon from 2004. Nothing's happening. So why does this room feel lived in? Background stripped out, just characters on a flat white void. That's the show without it. No texture, no depth, no place. And that is the show, and this is the show with it. Same scene, same characters, same animation, but the room feels like a room now. The mansion feels old, the light feels like Saturday afternoon. The cartoon feels like a place. That difference is somebody's actual job. A specific person with a name painted that, or a small team of them did. And here's what genuinely drives me a little bit crazy. The entire reason your favorite 2000s cartoons feel like they exist in real places and not on a flat green pageant stage is the work of maybe a dozen people who worked at Cartoon Network Studios and Hanna-Barbera between 1998 and 2010. And almost nobody outside the industry seems to know their name. Not because their work isn't celebrated, not because they don't have Emmys, not because they aren't currently running entire animation labels at Pixar and Illumination. It's because the way we credit animation in this country is fundamentally broken. We name the showrunner, we name the voice cast, and then the people who literally painted the world you're looking at show up in a card that flies past at 30 frames per second after the music has already started fading. So today we're fixing that. 8 names, 8 careers, and one final reveal at the end that I genuinely think is gonna mess you up a little. Don't worry, it's a good mess. What's up? I'm Ruff and welcome back to Half Baked Takes, and I want you to bookmark a thing for me before we start. As I introduce each one of these people, pay attention to the shows that they've worked on. That's all I'm gonna say. There's a pattern, we'll connect it at the end. Also, fair warning, this is the most visual video this channel has ever made. Pause it whenever you need to. Some of these shots deserve a longer look than I can give them in a 20-minute video. We good? Let's do this. Okay, let's kick off with Dan Krall, art director on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Foster's is the reason most of you know his work, even if you don't know his name yet. Before Foster's, and this part is wild, Krall was working as a background artist and designer at Hanna-Barbera and then Cartoon Network Studios on Dexter's Lab, The Powerpuff Girls, Camp Lazlo, and My Gym Partner's a Monkey. Now, he didn't paint everything on all of those shows, but he was in the bullpen, the same building, the same paint table, the same crew. And then he moves to Foster's in 2004 and takes the art director chair. The warm light, the detailed wallpaper, the way the mansion feels like it has 80 years of history on the walls. That's Dan. He set the look. But here's where Dan Krall's career takes a turn most people don't know about. After Foster's, he goes to feature animation. He's a character designer and visual development artist on Coraline.
Coraline Jones.
Yes, that Coraline, the Leica one, 2009. Co-designed the final character look for Shane Prigmore. Drew the other mother, that other mother. And he was on How to Train Your Dragon at DreamWorks. Look at that, same hand, same sense of light. The man went from Foster's Mansion to Beldam's Mansion, basically. He's now primarily a children's book author and illustrator. Publishes with Simon & Schuster, new graphic novel series coming with Union Square in 2027. And his portfolio site is full of paintings that look like extremely fancy Foster's backgrounds. It's at dankrall.com with a hyphen in the middle. The unhyphenated one is a park domain, so don't get fooled. I'll link it in the description. Go look at his stuff, really good stuff. Bookmark Krall, Dexter's, Powerpuff, Camp Lazlo, Foster's Coraline, How to Train Your Dragon, and children's books. Now we're on to artist number 2, Don Shank, background painter on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, 2 Primetime Emmys, an Annie Award, and a Concept Art Award for Pixar's Elemental in 2023. He's quietly one of the most awarded American animators of his generation, and you've probably never heard his name. Shank's resume reads like a checklist of every show that defined the era. Character layout on Ren and Stimpy. Yeah, we'll come back to Ren and Stimpy in a couple minutes, just hold on. Then you have storyboard and writing credits at Hanna-Barbera, and here it is again, Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Powerpuff Girls. Then he paints backgrounds on Foster's alongside Dan Krall. And then on November 2004, he gets hired full-time at Pixar. And from there, brace yourself for the list, visual development on The Incredibles, additional designs on Ratatouille, sets art director on Up, set designer on Inside Out, sets art director on Finding Dory, sets art director on The Short Bow, additional set design on Coco and Incredibles 2, additional designs on Soul, sets art director on Luca, production designer on Elemental. The same person who painted Foster's Mansion is the sets art director on Up. Bro, the same person. Pause this video, open Letterboxd, find Up, scroll to the cast and crew. Tell me how easy that name is defined. Find his name on Inside Out, find his name on Elemental. You will scroll past past 50 other names before you get to the guy who literally designed the room. Don Shank has been quietly shaping how American animation looks for 30 years. His website is donshank.com. Go look. I am genuinely a little bit obsessed with this guy's portfolio. Bookmark Shank, Ren and Stimpy, Dexter's, Powerpuff, Samurai Jack, Foster's, Pixar from 2004 to now, production designer on Elemental. And now we're on to Artist 3, and this guy might be the wildest career path on this list. I'm gonna do my best to say her name, I'm really sorry. Martin Anasolabahare. I know I butchered that. I know I did. I need to confirm. Anasolabahare. So I think I did all right. So Martin Anasolabahare, background painter and art director, and his career is basically a tour of every important Cartoon Network show of the last 25 years. He starts as a background painter on the Powerpuff Girls in 1998, the very beginning of the show. He paints those wild Crayola bright Townsville skylines. He moves on to the Powerpuff Girls movie in 2002. Then, and we're staying in the Cartoon Network Studios building, he becomes supervising background painter and assistant art director on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends across 2005 through 2009. Same crew, same building, Crawl and Shank are doing their thing. Anasolabahare is right there with them. Then Foster's ends in 2009, and he immediately rolls into Adventure Time as a background painter. Across the entire show's run, by the way, he painted the Land of Ooh. And then, because this guy literally does not stop, he becomes the art director on Craig of the Creek, setting the visual look of one of the warmest, most authentically painted backgrounds on TV right now. That's 20 plus straight years of painting Cartoon Network studio shows for a living. Powerpuff, Foster's, Adventure Time, Craig of the Creek. Every time you've sat down to watch a Cartoon Network show in this century, there's a non-trivial chance Martin Anasolabahare helped paint the world you were looking at, and he's still going. Bookmark him, Powerpuff, Foster's, Adventure Time, Craig of the Creek. Then we have artist 4, Mike Moon, and an important caveat up top. Mike's an art director and producer, not strictly a background painter, but he's an essential part of the Cartoon Network studio story, and where he ended up in a perfect example of the problem this whole video is about. Moon started at Klasky Chupo as a layout artist on The Simpsons. Yeah, The Simpsons, earliest season. Then he moves through some serious mid-90s Disney work, director and art director on Mickey's Mouse Works and House of Mouse, won an Emmy for outstanding individual achievement in animation for Mouse Works. The man has a real Emmy on his shelf. Then comes the Powerpuff Girls movie in 2002, art director, cinema scale Powerpuff, and then he becomes producer and art director on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends alongside Craig McCracken. He wins another Emmy for Foster's. So here's the guy who laid out Simpsons, art directed the Powerpuff Girls movie, won 2 Emmys, produced Foster's, one of the actual architects of the 2000s Cartoon Network look. And now, this is where this video gets to be a rant. Because if you search Mike Moon right now, most of the bios are wrong. Half of them still says he's head of animated series at Disney Channel. He hasn't been there since 2017. Some of them still say he's at Netflix. He left Netflix in July 2022, where he actually is as of right now, 2026, September 23rd, 2022, Hollywood Reporter and Variety both announced it. Moon was hired at Illumination as president of a new label called Moonlight and senior creative advisor to Illumination itself. That's where he's been for 4 years. And the bios on his prior career
are all still showing his Disney Channel job.
This is the problem in one career. The man art directed the Powerpuff Girls movie and produced Foster's. He won 2 Emmys. He runs a major animation label right now. And we can't even keep track of where these people work. And that's not Mike Moon's fault. That's the fact that the credit system for the entire industry was built around showrunners and voice cast. And absolutely nobody bothers updating where the painters and the production designers actually go. So bookmark Moon. We got The Simpsons, Powerpuff Girls movie, Foster's Home, Disney Channel, Netflix, now Illumination's Moonlight label. Then we move on to Artist 5, Bill Wray, or William York Wray, technically. Born March 24th, 1956. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is the man who painted those disgusting close-ups in Ren and Stimpy. The hairballs, the grime, the festering, the screaming nerve-ending shots that traumatized a generation of kids. He was a lead background painter and later director on Ren and Stimpy. He also storyboarded, wrote, directed, multi-tool guy. That look, the wet, fleshy, painterly close-ups that made Ren and Stimpy look like nothing else on TV, that's a Bill Wray production call. And then he keeps painting cartoons. He paints backgrounds on Samurai Jack, and if you've seen Samurai Jack, you know the backgrounds on that show are not the same as anything else on Cartoon Network. Those wide, painterly landscape art backgrounds, Bill Wray was in there. But here's the wild part. Bill Wray's actual current career, he's a fine artist, a landscape painter. specifically in a show called Urban Realism. He paints Los Angeles, cars, parking lots, rusty pickup trucks at sunset. He has gallery shows. He's actually really good at it. The man who painted Stimpy's eyeball pus retired to paint moody California parking lots in oil. That's a career arc, and it makes more sense than you think. The painterly look of Ren and Stimpy was Bill Wray smuggling fine art technique into a Nickelodeon cartoon. He was already doing this work, he just used cartoon characters as the medium for a while. His site is williamray.com. Go look. Specifically look at his landscape work, and then go back and look at the Samurai Jack episode where Jack walks through the post-apocalyptic city. Same exact eyes, same exact hand, same exact guy. Bookmark Wray. Ren and Stimpy, Samurai Jack, the Mighty Bee, now a gallery painter. Then we have Artist 6, Scott Wills, and this is the most important name on this entire list, and almost nobody knows it. Gendy Tartovsky's career-long art director. That's the headline. Wills painted backgrounds on Dexter's Lab, painted on Ren and Stimpy. Then, when Tartovsky started Samurai Jack, Wills left a feature animation job at DreamWorks to come work on a kids' TV show. Read that again. He left feature animation to paint a Cartoon Network show, and once he did that, Samurai Jack happened. Those painted landscapes, those cinematic wides. That's the moment Cartoon Network stopped looking like Cartoon Network and started looking like a feature film. And Scott Wills was the guy holding the brush. He's worked with Tartovsky on every single one of his shows since. Star Wars Clone Wars in 2003, Symbionic Titan, Primal, where Wills won the Emmy for Outstanding Production Design in an Animated Program. Twice! This man should be famous. He paints in acrylic on traditional media in 2024, when the entire animation industry moved to Photoshop and digital painting. Scott Wills was still squeezing real paint onto a real palette to paint cartoons that aired on Adult Swim. And nobody outside the animation world knows his name. Make it make sense. Please, for the love of God, bookmark Wills, Dexter's, Ren and Stimpy, Samurai Jack, Clone Wars, Symbionic Titan, Primal. Then we have Artist 7, Lou Romano. This guy's career is the cleanest possible example of the problem I'm describing. You know him. You just don't know that you know him. Romano started at Warner Brothers doing color work on The Iron Giant, that movie that everybody loves. Then he moves to Hanna-Barbera and becomes a paint and color artist on the Powerpuff Girls, painting thumbnail color studies, finished color keys, working alongside Don Shank in the same room. In 2000, he leaves Cartoon Network for Pixar, and in 2004, 4 years later, he's the production designer on The Incredibles. That's the same person. Production designer, that's the top of the visual development credit hierarchy on a Pixar feature. He won an Annie Award for it in 2005. And then because the universe has a sense of humor, in 2007, he voices Linguini in Ratatouille, the lead character. So this man is now both a Pixar production designer and a Pixar lead voice cast member, and you have no idea what he looks like. This is the entire shape of the problem. Lou Romano went from painting Powerpuff Girls color keys in a back room at Hanna-Barbera to designing The Incredibles to playing the lead role in Ratatouille. Leadish, you know what I mean. 3 of the most watched animated properties of the 21st century, and his Wikipedia page is shorter than the Wikipedia page for the actor who voiced Mater in Cars. Bookmark Romano, Iron Giant, Powerpuff Girls, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, up. Oh man. Then we have Artist 8, the last artist we're talking about today, Phil Reinda. And this guy's a little outside the 2000s Cartoon Network cluster, but he comes out of it and he matters. He's the bridge from the Cartoon Network Studios crew to the modern Disney TVA character design tradition. Reinda's first credits, mid-2000s, are as a designer on The Venture Bros, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and Chowder. That's 3 different Cartoon Network houses. The man worked everywhere. Then he becomes the lead character and prop designer on Adventure Time for the first 2 seasons, and part of season 3. That look, the Finn and Jake designs, the prop language of Adventure Time, that's Phil's hand. He leaves Adventure Time in early 2011 and goes to Disney to design Gravity Falls. Yeah, same eye for shape language, same prop sensibility, same guy. Then he directs the We Bare Bears pilot in development at Cartoon Network. Then he becomes creative director of Netflix Animation Studio. And in May 2023, he leaves Netflix to become director of original animation at the, wait for it, Pokemon Company International, where he's at right now. The reason I'm including Reinda, even though he's not strictly a background painter, is because the design tradition this video is celebrating doesn't only live in the background paintings, it lives in the props, the characters, the world shape, the visual sense that ties it all together. And Ryan is a character designer who carries that 2000s Cartoon Network shape language across the studio wall to Disney and built Gravity Falls out of it. Then he ran Netflix's animation creative direction, then he went to run Pokemon's animation. It's the same guy, 5 different studios, 20 years. He's on Twitter at Phil Rynda, active, sometimes post-production sketches, worth a follow. Bookmark Rynda, Venture Bros, Billy and Mandy, Chowder, Adventure Time, Gravity Falls, Netflix, now Pokemon. All right, take those bookmarks, let's release them. Let me show you something. Dan Kroll, Dexter's Powerpuff, Camp Lazlo, Foster's Coraline, How to Train Your Dragon. Don Shank, Ren and Stimpy, Dexter's Powerpuff, Samurai Jack, Foster's The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Up, Inside Out, Finding Dory, Luca, Elemental, Martin and Sola Bear, Powerpuff, Foster's Adventure Time, Craig of the Creek, Mike Moon, Simpsons, Powerpuff Girls movie, Foster's Disney Channel, Netflix, Now Illumination, Bill Wray, Ren and Stimpy, Samurai Jack, The Mighty Bee, Scott Wills, Dexter's Ren and Stimpy, Samurai Jack, Clone Wars, Symbionic Titan and Primal, Lou Romano, Iron Giant, Powerpuff Girls, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Up, Phil Rynda, Venture Bros, Billy and Mandy, Chowder, Adventure Time, Gravity Falls, We Bare Bears Pilot, Netflix, now Pokemon. That's the same building. Cartoon Network Studios at Hanna-Barbera and Burbank, late 90s through the late 2000s. The same 5 to 10 people in slightly different chairs, in slightly different roles, on slightly different shows. Every single one of those years. That's why every one of those shows looks like it belongs in the same universe, even though they're tonally and completely different. It's not the look of Cartoon Network because someone wrote a style guide. It's the look of Cartoon Network because Kroll, Shank, and Sola Bear, Moon, Ray, Wills, Romano, Rynda, and a few others all worked there at the same time, all influenced each other, all painted alongside each other, and all carried that visual vocabulary out into the rest of American animation when they left. Foster's was painted by the people who painted Dexter's Lab. Coraline was painted by the guy who painted Foster's. Up was art directed by the guy who painted Ren and Stimpy. The Incredibles was production designed by the guy who painted Powerpuff Girls. Gravity Falls was designed by the guy who designed Adventure Time, who came up through Cartoon Network Studios. The 2000s never actually ended, they just got promoted, hired away, or quietly moved to feature animation. And here's what gets me. Every single one of these people I just named, by every objective metric, is a heavyweight in American animation. Multiple Emmys, multiple Annies, Oscars, adjacent feature credits, production designer titles, studio leadership roles, and myself and the team had to do hours of research to verify the basic facts about most of their careers. 2 of the URLs in this video, 2 of them had to be corrected from sources that were years out of date. The Mike Moon bios that were still listing him at Disney Channel, he's been at Illumination since 2022. Almost no bio of him reflects that. The Lou Romano Wikipedia page is shorter than the Wikipedia pages for half of the side characters in the Cars movies. And there goes Cars catching strays again. Listen, I love the Cars movies and the cast. Anyways, the man designed The Incredibles. That's what I'm trying to get at here. The work is doing the rounds, the recognition just isn't. And it's not because these people are quiet about it. Their portfolio sites are public, their Twitter accounts are active, they speak at conferences, they run mentorship programs. They're not hiding. The industry is just not paying attention, and neither are the algorithms on platforms like YouTube. But hey, maybe this video can manage to change that. Now, I want to be really clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that showrunners don't deserve credit. They do. I'm not saying voice casts don't deserve credit. Of course they do. What I am saying is that animation is the only major narrative medium in America where the people who literally painted what you are looking at get credited like a back office function instead of an authorship one. In live action, production designers get nominated for Oscars. In animation, production designers get one line on a Wikipedia table. In live action, you'll see a behind-the-scenes featurette walking you through the sets of Game of Thrones. In animation, you get a Comic-Con panel where the voice cast does an autograph signing, and the people who painted the world the cast was voicing literally stay at home. And it's not the fans' fault. You guys can't credit work you don't know exists. That's why this video exists. It's the industry's fault. The award shows are structured around showrunners and voice cast. The press tours are structured around showrunners and voice cast. The DVD commentaries are recorded by showrunners and voice cast. The behind-the-scenes featurettes are interviews with showrunners and voice cast. And every time a kid grows up loving Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, they grow up loving Craig McCracken and Phil Lamar and Laura Jill Miller, which they should. And they have absolutely no idea who Dan Kroll is, even though Dan Kroll painted the place where Blue lived. Make it make sense, dude. We can do better. I think we have to do better because the alternative is what we're already seeing. These people get promoted out of cartoons, hired away to features, quietly moved to executive labels. And then the next generation of animation viewers doesn't get to learn their names because they're not in the building anymore. Don Shank is at Pixar, Lou Romano is at Pixar, Mike Moon is at Illumination, Phil Reinda is at Pokemon, Bill Wray is in a gallery. All of them moved on. All of them are still working, and almost nobody under the age of 30 knows who the hell they are. Hell, almost nobody above the age of 30 does either. Let's be honest, I didn't until I had the idea for this video and the research started. We have one move available to us. Pause the show, look at the wides, read the credits all the way through. Look the names up. Their websites are right there. Their portfolios are right there. You can post a comment that names them, and that will help. Algorithms care about names. Wikipedia editors care about citations. The award shows care about social signal. The 2000s era of Cartoon Network was painted by these people. We owe them the favor of saying their names out loud. And look, here's what I keep coming back to. We talk a lot on this channel about the shows from the era I grew up in. Foster's, Billy and Mandy, Dexter's, Kids Next Door, whatever. And those shows have showrunners and creators we all know. Craig McCracken, Maxwell Adams, Gendy Tarkovsky, Tom Warburton. We name those guys rightly because they built the universes. But the people who actually painted those universes, the ones who made them look like places you could walk through, most of them are still working, most of them are still alive, most of them have personal websites with portfolios you can look at right now. And most of them don't get talked about because they're not the showrunner, and that's a shame because the show is the show. But the look of the show, the part of your brain that remembers what Foster's Mansion felt like at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, sun coming through the windows before anybody was up, that was painted by somebody sitting at a desk in Burbank in like 2004. And the person has a name, and their kids probably know their name, hopefully. So go look at their work, Google their names, tell other people about them. Check out their websites and their social media. They put it out there, just look at it. And the next time you sit down to watch one of these shows, pause it on a wide shot. Look at the room, somebody painted that. Y'all know the drill. I make these videos because I love this stuff, and it makes me genuinely sad that we built an entire generation of animation criticism around showrunner worship and let the people who painted the show fall off the map. That doesn't have to be how it works. It's just how it's worked so far. Hit subscribe if you want to see more deep dives like this, and I'll catch you in the next